be doing drill downs in WebFOCUS with maintain.
Well, partially. I will actually be in Ottawa that day, so I am probably going to record my presentation.
Like
So
I said, we're
it'll
going to
be
do it.
it'll be the Walter Blood show next month.
Yeah, pretty much. I'll be doing hidden gems and dialog
So
manager flow control.
be kind to him.
Yeah. Be nice. Be nice. All right. All right. And in December, we've got lined up maintain applications. Expressions revisited one more time. We can never revisit expressions too many times because there's so much possibility there. And I'm going to talk about analyze and using analyze and analysis, and hopefully showing it to you in a brand new tool that we're going to be showing in 9.3 called the Focus Studio. So that one's one you don't want to miss. All right. I think.
Well,
Did you-
remember at the end of the presentation, there is a link to the survey. We
Mhm.
take these surveys very seriously, and we take the information that you give us and we use that for our next presentations, for what you want to see, what you don't want to see.
Yes.
And it's very helpful to us to do this every month with you guys if we get the feedback.
That's right.
Positive and even less than perfect feedback, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Feedback.
Feedback.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's, it's great that you're here. We love to have you here. And if there's any ideas or questions that you have or suggestions, please shoot them in here, because we're listening. We're listening. And you see us every month, so you can check on us. So if we don't respond the first time, say it again. All right.
Proof of life.
Yeah, absolutely.
All
All right.
With that, I will share and start my presentation. And this is a good, well, they're all good ones, but I really like this one. Because how many times have you been developing an application and suddenly realized you need to know who's running the application or what server they're using or even what level of security they have or the time of day or anything along those lines? So we're going to go through administrative variables in maintain. So what do I mean by administrative variables? Well, you might want to know the name of the user. You might need to know the name of the server. There are a whole list of keywords that are available and others that aren't generally available, but can be gotten by passing values in through site WFS, using subroutines, and using other keywords. And here are the three ways that we're going to discuss today. We're going to go through basic subroutines, my favorite command, the IWC get app CGI value command, and the exec command. Now, I hope you guys don't mind. I'm just going to go flatware today. All the code is there. All the forms are there if you want to reproduce this at your site. I'm always happy to send you the code if you want it. But again, I'm not going to use App Studio today to show this stuff, but if you have any questions, I'll be happy to demonstrate. So let's say you want to know the name of the user that's running your application. We have a subroutine called get user. It's literally get user and the name of the variable that you're trying to retrieve. So in this very simple maintain application, I have compute user / 825 equals the get user and the variable user. When I run the application and display the variable, you'll see that it's M. Derwin. Now this is great, except on your site, get user may not bring you the actual name of the user. This is because when we're passing values to the database, when we're opening and closing certain agents and things, the password that your user has may not be the same password that's on your system. So get user of M. Derwin, that would be great, but a lot of times that will not give you the absolute value of who's using your system, depending upon your level of security and the way that your system is set up. If it works, fantastic, you're on your way. But what if it doesn't? We have these variables called commands called IWC get app CGI value. This is available to grab any value that's in your HTML environment or your WebFOCUS environment. It doesn't work for every variable, but it works for a lot of them. So I know that in the past, a lot of you had IBIC_user and IBIC_server. Please note these are case sensitive. Most maintain commands are not case sensitive. These guys are. So by just saying, let me get the value of CUser and CU server, I can then put them on my form and, oh, well, IBIC user doesn't have a value. That's okay. IBIC server does. So once again, just a way to get some of the system variables into my application. But CUser doesn't have a value. I don't get an error. I just don't get a value. But then we have something that I'm not even sure is documented. So by coming to this class, this presentation, you'll learn something that very few people know. Inside of WebFOCUS, there is an internal list called CGI app parms. Maintain can treat it almost like a stack. Now, all of you know that we use stacks in Maintain to retrieve and display values and run through loops and display on the forms, but we can use a stack, CGI app parms.keyword, to find all of the local variables that are displayed or exposed to our application. So I'm going to create a loop, and I'm going to take a keyword and use that parameter in my IWC get app CGI value. Now again, that's what we're using here, but this is actually a variable. So the first keyword is IWC CUser. That's ediserve. The next one is IBI-MR subaction, then ad hoc effects, then token, then command. Again, these are things we don't really care about, but these are the variables that are exposed when we run through all of the keywords. So that's kind of neat. And I'll show in the next slide, we'll see why that's even cooler. Or we'll see some other slides about why. And again, this is very short today. I just wanted to show you some of the power that Maintain has to grab external values. So now there are some variables that are in our WebFOCUS environment, but we can't get to from Maintain, at least not unless you expose those variables to the environment. So the way that we do that is in a file called site.wfs. And the way that we get to site.wfs is we bring up the WebFOCUS hub, we go to our administrative console, and then click on custom settings. So in my WebFOCUS hub, I click on administration console and go to custom settings. And this displays my site.wfs file, which I guess we don't expose anymore as the name of the file. I guess we assume you just don't need to know that. So in this file, I put set in carets, IBI-MR_user, close pass. And this is the syntax that we use. You can put any variable name in between the set and the pass and save this file. Now, when we run our maintain, I can then retrieve MR user. Now, again, it's not it's not amper MR user, it's just MR user. And my MR user comes back as admin. And this is because I am the admin on my server. Now,
Mark,
yes.
quick question. Before number 8 was a set PC hold format and it moved down. Is there a reason why the one that you add isn't added at the last?
It's alphabetical, Arthur.
Oh, okay. Thank
As
you.
Arthur pointed out in this slide here, set PC hold format was binary at number 8. But after we exposed MR user to our application, it is passed in, and this list certainly looks alphabetical to me. Actually, it isn't, because IBIM
No.
user would be before. Nope, I have no service in random order. I have no idea why this list is displayed this way. But we now see that IBIM our user, now that it's exposed to the application, is available in our arms list. But let's do one more thing. Some WebFOCUS variables can be retrieved by using external procedures. For some reason, a customer needed FOCSEC user, and no matter how I tried to expose it into the maintain application, I couldn't get it to come in. So when I did it with the dialog manager command, it automatically gave me the word admin, which is what I wanted. So what I did was I created a FOCExec, well, excuse me, not a FOCExec that just said -type _FOCSEC user, and I called it get FOCSEC user. In my maintain application, I then expose it, and I don't know why it's there twice, forgive me, and I add it into my application. Then inside my maintain code, I can say exec get FOCSEC user into folk message. When maintain sees an exec statement, it takes control from the maintain application, passes it to the procedure, and retrieves the value. I can then assign FOCSEC user to a line in that folk message stack. It happens to be the last line. And then when I run, I see that FOCSEC user is set to admin. And one other cool thing that happened, since my maintain application was looking for an external procedure, it had to know the path. So it added my IBI app path as Focus Friday, which is where I store everything. And that's all I wanted to show you guys today. We can retrieve some values using subroutines, some values using get app CGI value, some that need to be calculated and passed in via site.wfs, and some that can be passed in from Dialog Manager. And you can use any of these methods or combination of these methods to get the values that you need. The only other thing I didn't touch on was when we need to pass selected values from tables, and that's a combination of all of these things as well, and I'll cover that in a later presentation. That's all I have, guys. Are there any questions about anything we discussed today?
Mark, just to recap, if I wanted to get a specific value in that array, since I don't know the order in which they're going to be returned, I literally have to loop through the entire list every time to look for the specific value I'm looking for?
Do you know the name of the parameter?
Yes.
Then all you need to do is put it inside an iwc.getAppCGI value. This
Okay,
is
thank you.
all the values. And we're looking at the word keyword, which is generic. If you know the name of the parameter that you're searching for, you just use the IWC getAppCGI value, and that'll return the value.
Thank you.
All right, guys, then I am going to stop sharing and send control over to Walter Brengel. If you have any questions besides what's been asked, you can ask them in the chat. You can send me an email. You can call me direct. I'm always around.
Or you can put them in the evaluation at the end of the show.
All right, my turn, huh? Let me
Yep,
just get set
you're up.
here. Get my participant, my chat windows open. Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to talk about Redefine today. And I'm going to tell you when you should use it, and I'm going to show you the conditions of when you might want to use it, but I'm only going to go into detail on one of them. So let's just jump in. So why would you use it? Well, let's say you have a format, a field that has a format, and you want to change the format. You want to go from alpha to numeric. Well, that's not just a redefine, that would be a translation. But if you just want to increase the field size, if you have one numeric format, you want to go to a different numeric format, then basically you're just going to say the new country, which is the same name country, is going to equal the database field country. Okay, when else? So let's say your DBA, who knows better than anyone what they're doing, changes your database. And I know there's some of you out there that's going through this right now. I won't mention names. But the original field was an I8, I4 in the synonym. So their Oracle table got changed. They refreshed the synonym, and now the synonym says it's a D20, D8. Well, there's been some issues in some of the tools. Let's say Info Assist and App Studio. Specifically, the person I'm talking about is an App Studio. There's issues with join and match when the formats are not the same. Now, I say there's issues, but the issues seem to only be apparent in the tool, in App Studio. So one of the solutions is to redefine the field. Look again, same name, and we're going to use the old format, equals sales. So this helped in some situations. In fact, I believe it helped with join, but it didn't help with match. So be careful how you're using this new defined field, because if you're using it in a join, well, the join now becomes a defined base join. So a standard join that you already have coded isn't going to work. It's going to use the original value and format. All right. Now, the one we're going to talk about in more detail is controlling your computing processing. And I'm actually going to do a live example. So since Mark didn't do a live, I'll do a live. So let's look at this code. Single file car, some sales by country by car. Notice we have 3 sums, which tells me it's a multi-verb. The first sum sales doesn't have a by, so it's going to be total sales. The next sales value is going to be aggregated by country. And then the final sales is going to be aggregated by country by car. So if I run that, I'll get the values I want, which I didn't happen to show, but you'll see it when we do the example. So in this, I want to now add a compute, and I want to compute the percent of the car sales to the total country sales. Okay, so I'm going to do a compute. Percent of total country slash D8.2 equals 100 times sales divided by sales.
Really?
And I'll actually show you what you get when you do this, but it's not what you hope to get. It's probably what you think you're going to get, because sales divided by sales is 1. 1 times 100 is 100. So it's confusing. Which sales are you getting? Is it the one you want? I don't know. So you can then use column notation. So notice I changed the sales divided by sales to C3 divided by C2. Well, how did I determine that the car sales was C3 and the country sales was C2? So I'm saying this is risky. You need a full understanding of column notation. I was teasing Mr. Blood yesterday and said you need a master's degree.
Yep.
We also have a C notation setting, which will affect the results. And we're going to go into some of that when I do the live stuff. So what's the best way to handle all this? Well, do a redefine. And technically, I'm not really doing a redefine. I'm creating new fields with the same value as the original field. So here I'm doing define file car. Total sales is going to be sales. Country sales is also going to be sales. All this is doing is giving it new names. And I need to change this slide because my table file car should say some total sales, some country sales by country. So this is a lot safer. And notice in my compute now, I can say sales divided by country sales. Now, notice I didn't say car sales as a redefine, because at this point, I only have one sales, and it's down here at the lowest level, down here. So that sales value is going to be down at the lowest buy field, which in this case is car. I could have done a car sales if I wanted to, but you didn't really need to. All right, how can I clear my annotation over?
Walter,
Yes,
quick question. In your compute, you're using the field sales. Which of the 3 sales fields mentioned
I
in the
said
table
I
request
said
is used?
I need to fix this slide. This should be
Okay. My question is, if you don't fix it, which one would it have used? Because is it the last reference or the first reference? I don't remember which.
the last reference. It'll be the one by
Thank you.
country. All right, how do I get rid of all these? Give me 1 second. I'm trying to figure out how to delete all my annotations. I'll just get rid of them one by one.
There you go.
Close that. Okay. All right, so let's go live. And let's close that. There we go. Get that over there. All right, so we're going to start off like we did before. So I get my total sales here first. I get my total sales by country next, and then my total sales by country by car. And then I added the compute. And as I said, we should get 100% at this point because we're picking up, there's our 100%, which isn't what we wanted. And then I talked about column notation. So I can do C3. And how do I get to C3? The standard column notation, if you did not set C notation, if it's the default C notation, your verb objects come first. So some sales, this is column 1, this is column 2, and then this is column 3. So I'm going to take C3 divided by C2. So notice my 12,000 is 100% of the total for England. Same here, but if we look at Japan, we have 43 and 37 broken out. So we got 55% and 44% within the country sales. The problem with C notation is, let's say I decide to add an extra column.
Got an extra S.
Retail. So I should know. Can I pluralize?
We used to be a 4GL.
Now, strangely, this didn't change anything. No, notice we got 45 and 45 as opposed to 55 and 45.
Yeah, take a look at the other numbers, though.
Oh yeah, these used to be 100.
Yeah.
So the reason being is now this is first sales is C1, retail cost now becomes C2. So when you start using the C notation, you have to be careful if you decide to go back and change the report. I can also put a no print. No print says I wanted the column because I'm probably going to use it in a calculation, but I don't want to see it. Well, this gives us the same result because physically it's still the second column. And remember I said that there's different settings for C notation? Well, we have one called C notation equals print only, which only counts the columns based on what you see in the output. So if I do this, even though I added the extra retail cost, it's still going to not be counted as far as a column. And I go back to the 100 and the 40 and the 55, 44. So this is why, we say you need some sort of degree in C notation in order to figure this out. Now, one thing I do want to try while I'm here, I'm going to go back to the original. And I'm going to put sales. Now this works in style sheets, but I don't think it actually works here, but I want to try it. In style sheets, if you have the same column multiple times, you can reference it in parentheses like a subscript. So I can say where's the second sale, or I want the third sales divided by the second sales. But yeah, I don't think it works here. No.
Nope.
But it does work in style sheets.
Yeah. It thinks it's a subroutine because of the parentheses.
So the best solution, define file car, total sales, country sales, we'll make this total, we'll make this country, and we're going to say sales divided by total sales.
Okay.
No, I want country sales.
Right.
To keep it consistent with what we've been doing. And we get the same values now. Now, if I add an extra column, it doesn't matter. I still get the same values. So it's a lot less confusing, and it's a lot more, you can make changes without having to worry about it. All right, that's pretty much all this is about.
Walter? Walter?
Arthur?
You going to comment on the issue of referencing fields in a compute that aren't referenced in the request to become no printed fields? When you're dealing with C notation.
Right.
That's important.
Well, I thought I did that with the no print, but I'll get a little more detailed.
I'm talking about if you just reference a field like compute.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying.
Okay, you know what I'm talking about. Okay.
So what Art is saying is, let's say I have, let's say I do some profit equals retail cost minus dealer cost.
Some compute?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let's just keep it simple. Or let's do by country, by car, by model. So this is what we get. We get country, car, model. So what author is pointing out, if I do a compute, column 1 equals C1, what value am I going to get? Because I said that the column counting is based on the verb objects. So the first verb object looks like it's profit. But is it? Column 1 is 8878, where profit is 1451. So where did this 8878 come from? Well, if you reference a field in a compute that you're not looking at, you don't see it, it's being referenced, it then also becomes a column as far as the column notation is concerned. So then this is C1, retail is C1, dealer is C2, profit then becomes C3. And later, maybe next year, we'll do a whole thing on column notation. So if you guys want to see that, we'll do it. But this was more just for the talking more about the redefine. So I don't want to go into too much detail on this. Anybody but Art have any questions?
I have one.
Yes.
Can I speak?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead. As long as
All right.
nobody else has one.
Here's the
Everyone
question
has a
or the
chance.
comment. If you use it, redefine, but make it a constant. Like suppose you defined sales equals 100. You're not
That's
going to
not a
get what you think.
redefine then at that point. That is a literal. That's a constant.
Pardon me?
So if you're saying sales equals 100, then you're just establishing
Right.
a value. You're not really redefining anything.
Well, it's redefining if you'll call sales, and the problem is because it's at level or segment 0, it gets done once, but then it gets overwritten every time you do a retrieval. That's why you have to use the with phrase to say associated with this segment, so it's evaluated every time you retrieve the segment containing the field.
That's right. Anytime, yeah, we need a reference point to be able to determine when we evaluate it. And if we normally rely on the fields to do that, and we will evaluate it at the lowest point in the structure. So if you have fields that are in multiple segments, the evaluation is going to be done at the lowest segment because we have to go to that lowest segment in order to get the data value.
Right.
So
Art, I did sales D8 equals 100.
Okay.
Print sales by country car model.
So it's associated with the lowest segment.
Right.
Now print out sales and R cost. So you retrieve that segment as well. Maybe they fixed it. I don't remember what segment sales is in. Is that specs?
same as our cost.
Okay, then maybe they fixed whatever the issue I was referring to, because
Yeah,
it used to be a problem. That's why you had to use the with.
There's all sorts of changes that they've done because
Yeah.
I remember when I said set country if country in a define country equals if country equals England then USA, and then if I did an if country equals England, it would pick it up because the if was supposed to go against the real database value before it did anything else, but it doesn't do that anymore. It's actually going into the defined value, which I thought was kind of strange, but that's neither here nor there. All right, anything else on redefined? Going once,
Going
going
twice.
twice. All right, Mr. Blood, you're up.
All right, let me just fire up my. Let's go over here, and I'm going to start this. I'm gonna go. Actually, that was a mistake. I gotta actually share first. Share, and I'm gonna screen 2. Share. Okay.
Just the Q&A, I was able to reactivate it.
Oh, what was it?
I don't know, it was unchecked for some reason in the
okay.
options bar, and
All right. All right, let's
we like chat too.
yeah. Let's talk today about I want to talk some more about one of my favorite things, match, the other connector, the other join, the join that gets short shrift in the world of focus. And it's really this is really about talking about how we allow you to connect things together. Typically, you're probably doing a fair amount of work where you're having to bring data together from multiple sources. And there's a lot of ways to do that. You can use you can use join to do that. And basically join's a great product. Join is probably one of the most strongest things that we've got out there. Join is based on a very simple way of doing things. It's a nested loop. I have 2 files that I'm going to join together. I'm going to take a value from file, I'll call my host file, and I'm going to go over to my cross-reference file and see if I've got something that either matches it or whatever the criteria I am using to do the join. it comes up and says, yep, that's the case, in which case I will take that and use that record. If it doesn't, I'm going to go back to my file A again and do exactly the same thing. And that loop will continue until there's no more data left in file A. We go through all the records. Now, if you have selection criteria in there, if tests or where tests, it's going to limit what you actually get to, right? You're not going to see everything. You're only going to see what you're selected on. Now, that has an effect. And let me get this out of the way because I can't see. All right. Thank you. It has a single starting point. All right. Whenever you work with a join, you're working from the top, the first file mentioned in the join on down. And you can have multiple joins, and the joins will all start. They may start with the same thing, but you're going to build a hierarchy with that set of joins. Now, they may all be unique joins, in which case the first join is going to be the top, and everything else is going to be one segment below it. But the way we work, with unique joins, we treat everything, anything that's unique, we treat as part of the parent. So all of that data then becomes available to you. But it's a single point. Now, if you have anything in a more complicated structure, that's the single point problem. And you can end up with paths. You might have multiple paths. You may have paths that are not reachable. Now, the filtering that you do when you're working with joins is order dependent. It's dependent upon the order that you set the joins up in. If you filter out something in file A that would screen out something in file B, a record in file B, you're never going to see it. Right? It's not going to be there. It's going to get screened out before you even get there. The screening condition on file B that you might have might never get activated. All right. So as a result, any data down in file B that gets screened out as a result of file A is basically lost. This is just a characteristic of the way join works. Now, you can get what I'll call an inner and a left outer kind of a structure using join. You're always going to have data values from your host side, which is the file A side, always. The question is, what are you going to have from the file B side? If you require that there's a data value over there, you're going to get an inner join. All right. If you don't require that there be a value there, you're going to get basically a left outer join. So there may be what we call short paths. You may have missing data. Now, the way that you determine that you've got a connection here is either going to be fields that are the same, have the same value, or there's an expression that you set up in the join command that will evaluate to true, that will allow you to say, okay, these two records are connected. All right. It may have nothing to do with fields. It may have nothing to do with the data that you're actually looking for. Maybe you can actually use join and conditional joins to join files that have absolutely nothing in common. All right. That's a reasonable thing to do. That's a very common thing to do. There's a single pass that we're going to do through the data. All right. We're going from the top to the bottom, and we're going to follow that path all the way to the bottom. Now, with join, when you're working with join, you have the full table language. You've got a lot of different types of output formats. All right. That's join. And join is a really big thing. We use it a lot. It's optimizable very nicely to almost to all the SQL databases. The beautiful thing about Focus and WebFOCUS is that we don't really care. We can join things that would not normally be joined. We can join a VSAM file to a DB2 table, and that's perfectly normal for us. That's not something that would normally be done. All right, we're basically taking two completely different data structures, and we're basically doing the work for you underneath the covers. But it's all the same language. It's very simple. You set the join up. You take fields that have common values, or you have an expression that you can evaluate to the same on both sides, and you go. You don't have to worry about what the actual data structure is. You don't necessarily have to worry about it. Now, obviously, when you're working with join and you're working with disparate kinds of databases, you're paying a price, all right? We're going to have to do the work. We basically will have to bring the data back into the focus of the WebFOCUS engine and do the work there, all right? As opposed to writing SQL in the SQL world and passing that SQL and telling the SQL engine, you do it, in which case it's generally a whole lot faster. Now, we always tell you to do that. If you can optimize it because you're going to get better performance, and that's always something that you really want. Now, Match is not using that nested loop. Match brings things together in a different way. It uses what we call a sort merge, all right? And what the sort merge allows me, I have two different files I'm going to work with. I have what we'll call the old and we'll call the new, similar to the host and the cross-reference and the join concept. I'm going to get all of the data that I want from my old file, the first file, all right? And then I'm going to get all the data I want from my new file. And interestingly enough, at this point, the request that we have in Match is going to use the by field, okay, to do the match. The by fields are the things that are going to have to match, okay? The verb objects that you've got in there are basically the output that you're going to be looking for. And you have wheres on either side controlling selection here. And you'll notice here, the wheres are not dependent. They're independent, all right? Totally independent. Okay, now let's see what else. At that point, once we got that together, and this is all done behind the scenes, we're literally going to do a merge, and we're going to generate a hold file. Now that merge basically uses the after match hold phrase to tell us exactly what we want. Now, what is that doing? That's actually giving us a second level of selection. Okay, because now we know where that data is coming from, and we can literally say, okay, I want to select the data. I want to give primacy to the data that's in the old file, or I want to give primacy to the data that's in the new file. All right, and you can do that. You can't do that with join. You can do it with match very easily, and that's actually what it's designed to do. Now, there are multiple starting points here. Now, I can line up lots of matches, and we'll see. You can have multiple matches all going on literally in one long path. You've got multiple starting points here. You don't have just one. Your filtering is independent of the order, all right? You're going to effectively, screening out something in the old file has no effect on the screening in the new file. So you don't have to worry about that. It's a little bit different, all right? What do you get in terms of structures? You get inner joins. You can get a left outer join. You can get a right outer kind of a structure, and you can actually see full outer where you're getting all the data from both files. Right? That's a very easy thing for us to do. Now, join doesn't have that capability. It does under certain circumstances. Right outer and full outer are SQL-based concepts, and they are supported when we can go there. We have some support for that inside of Focus and WebFOCUS, and interestingly enough, what do you think they do inside of Focus and WebFOCUS to get that functionality?
Well,
go ahead.
There's a question.
Mm-hmm.
Is the option to use Match in IA or Designer?
That's a good question.
I know it's in App Studio.
I think it's definitely App Studio, and I think it may be on the list of something to get to in Designer. I'm not sure about IA. I mean, IA basically is pretty stable at this point. Most of the work that's going on at this point is Designer based. All right. Now, the thing is that this can be coded and used anywhere. All right. So if you can get to an editor, that's really all you need. You can build something like this in order to do it. Now, it's definitely in App Studio. Now, the inner outer, writer, full outer, this gives you the ability to work from both sides. That second selection that we're doing, the after match hold, that capability is you have, that's where the inner and the outers all come in play, right? And that's literally, we'll take a look at that. The connection here is based strictly on the bifields, all right? And it's based upon the bifield names, right? So you can name it anything. You can use as to rename things and make it the connection point. If you have two fields that basically need to be used the same. If they're numerics, we don't care. We will under the covers take care of the conversion for you. If it's alphas, we're going to be a little tighter. We're going to be required. You're going to be required to have the same data values. You can see that we've got this after-match hold, which in effect gives us a second source of selection, of filtering. And this is a really big part of match, and it does give you a whole lot more structure. Now, this is doing multiple passes through the data. Make no mistake about it, all right? This is not a single pass. Consequently, it's going to take a little bit more time. But it's also, nothing is free in this world. So if you want this kind of capability, you're going to have to pay for it. Now, there are limited output formats here. This is really designed to bring data together prior to using table on it, and that's probably why it's not a big thing in IA. IA is a reporting tool. It assumes that data is already there. This is a tool that allows you to assemble the data, and it's really more of an App Studio kind of a thing. That being said, the language is such that you can build it into any kind of a report, any kind of a structure, any kind of a focus deck, and use it to generate the data structures that you want to be able to use. And in some cases, it's a lot easier to work with, assemble all the data and then do the report on it, rather than trying to manipulate joins into giving you the structure that you want in a single pass, right? All right. Match. Okay, merges files sequentially, one at a time. We're based on common fields, and those are the bifields. There are 16. We can do this 16 times in a single match request. And I'll show you what the structure actually looks like. It's only going to produce one hold output. And that's the idea. The idea here is to bring it together. The output is controlled using the after match. This is the second selection that we talked about. It gives us the ability to get some additional kinds of screening. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know. So the question is, when comparing two files and using match, do both files have to have the same exact fields and formats in order to know what's in, for example, the old file, but it's not in the new file?
No. All we're doing is the thing that has to happen is the bifields have to be named the same. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but the idea here was the likelihood that you're going to have exactly the same field names in all your databases or your data structures is probably a ridiculous requirement. All we have to do with match is basically ensure that the usages are going to be the same. And that's what we're going to be looking for. Now, you can do an as just to rename a field, and that's generally what you want to do in order to make sure that you can do the connection and the connection members based on the bifields. If the bifields are numeric, no problem. All right, we're going to take care of the conversion among the various numeric formats for you automatically. You don't have to worry about it there. With the alpha fields, you have to be a little bit more concerned about the length. All right, that's pretty much it. And we will truncate. We will take unique truncations. All right. So, match. What do we do? Match, we're going to do some sort of verb objects, which is what we normally do on a bunch of fields, and we're going to sort it with by, okay? And we by a single field, we run. That basically does the first pass through the data and gets the old file. Then I'm going to specify another file, file 2. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to have a request over there. It can be a completely different request. But the critical thing is that by field 1, as FLD, basically has to have as FLD if I want the merge to be based on that. All right. And that's followed by an after match merge phrase. if I want it. If I don't have anything there, I'm going to get the default, which is old or new, which is everything. All right. Another run, and here's the third file in the same request. Okay, I'm going to go after a third file. I'm going to get field 2 as field and match it, and I'm at that point I can have a hold phrase at that particular point. Otherwise, it's going to go to a hold format alpha or a hold format, which will be binary actually, and you'll be done. All right. And of course, my puppies. The bifields are what's used to connect the files together. That's the critical piece. You're using the bifields. The merge phrases basically give you a second level of selection because it basically allows you to screen out based upon the source of the data. All right. Now, if you think about it, that's the kind of thing where you might have a standard file that you're working for the monthly totals, and you've got a daily transaction file. And you may want to be you're going to want to keep things. You want to differentiate between the two, and you can. You very easily would match, and that's the whole idea. One is set up as the old, the other is set up as the new. If I want to do some calculations and then save the database only based on the existing stuff in the old file, then I can say that. I can literally say that. Give me the stuff that's in the old one. Whether or not it had anything to do with the stuff in the new file. If there's no new transactions, ignore it. Doesn't make any difference. All right. Let's keep moving. Using the bifields, controls the column order in the record as well as the connection. You have to have the same name, all right, in order to match, and you can have 16 levels. The keys do not have to be the same. All right. And I've just been saying, yeah, we match based on the same key. Absolutely. Yeah, if you want them in a single column. The idea behind a match or a join is basically I want to join columns that have the same data. I want to bring those records together and do something with the fact that they have the same, this value is the same. All right. Now, if you don't have to have them the same, you can have them the same, but you don't necessarily have to. If the keys match, if the data values match, the records will be output and will combined, and the output will be placed. That one key will be in a single column. If the keys don't match, okay, they'll appear. They will appear in distinct columns. That's all. So, in terms of building records, in terms of building a data structure that you might want to work with, this is actually kind of interesting. The output record is going to be created based upon the common keys. All right. The keys plus the associated verb objects. We're always going to work from the order of the old to the new for the non-matching key objects. So you'll see the old key object before you see the new key object. Now there's a new structure that something new we put in the match column order, which we'll talk a little bit more about, which actually allows us to build hierarchical structures, and it's opened up a completely new world for match. Match has grown considerably as a result of it. We now can output to we're no longer limited to in terms of our outputs.
Well, there's a question.
Shoot.
Does the 16 levels mean up to 16 files or 16 bifields?
16 files. As many bifields as you want to play with. We don't care. You're limited to 128 sorts. And those can be in the world of WebFOCUS and focus sorting, you can have 128 sort fields, and that can be any mixture of sorts of bys and acrosses, but match is only going to work with bys. All right. You can fine tune what you're going to end up seeing, and in terms of the output, because you're generating an output record, and that record is going to be fine tuned by the verbs that you use. If you use sum, basically you're going to summarize data. All right, you're going to be summarizing the data on either the old or the new. You're going to be summarizing it down to one record based upon what you're asking, but the bifield is. Print, you're going to see all the records that are there. All right, very simple. Now, so there's literally 4 different combinations. Sum, print, sum, print, sum, print, sum. Let's take a look at them in a minute. The aggregate, if I sum, I'm aggregating the verb objects included at that level. The aggregation level is based on the buy, and the output sequence is controlled, like everything else, by the order of the request, the buys, and the match levels. Print includes the detail records for each verb object for each record in that level. All right. Now, here's a simple example. Take a look at it. I've set it up so that we're going to vary the verb, and we're going to just basically take everything. We're not going to screen anything out. Our after match is going to take everything. Show me everything. We got two simple files. Notice that my key here is N. All right, I'm using N, and that's just a number. That's all. That's kind of like I'm taking that because I'm going to show you what happens with the data when I start matching these keys. Now, when you start matching keys, the interesting thing that happens is to the verb objects that are not part of the keys. All right. So I've got England, I've got countries and dealer costs, and I've got cars and retail costs, and I'm going to match them together based on that field N, and that's really all. I'm going to vary the verb objects to see what happens. So let's take a look at the first one. If I have sum on both sides, if I sum an alpha field, what do I get? I get one value, right? And I get the lowest value. In the case of England, I get one record each for England and Japan, and then I get the sum of the dealer costs, right? Same thing on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side for my new file, I've got Jaguar and Jensen, so I get one. Which one do I get? I get the last one. All right, now there is a way to play with that, and that's the sum prefix, I believe. There is a setting command that you can actually use set to determine which one you get, but by default, you're going to get the last alpha value. There is a way to turn it around so you get the first. Again, same thing with a Toyota and a Datsun. We're picking up the last value. We're actually adding up the other ones. So it's pretty straightforward. If I want to basically collapse all the data down, and just do the aggregation on both sides, sum and sum, no problem. If I move to print and sum, you'll see that I've got 4 records on my old side. I'm going to take every record there, and I've got the aggregation going on my the new side. When you see the data there, it's been aggregated. I only have one value for each of those. Sum print is the exact opposite of the print sum, and the print basically shows me all of the data in both records. So you have a lot of control here over what you're assembling. Now, assembling these kinds of data records might be very valuable for building things like specific things that you need to display. And this is a very handy way to do that. All right. Match processing. This is the after match. What do? The selection that we have quite a few. These are the Venn diagrams, and you can see exactly what you get with each one of these. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these. Old or new is going to give you everything. Old and new is going to give you the intersection of those two sets, right? Oh, old not new and new not old basically exclude only the stuff that's either an old, I guess only in the old or only in the new. It excludes anything that's common. Old nor new basically is going to give you the things that are not common. So if you want to exclude the things that are common, it's the exact opposite of the old and new. All right. And then you can basically limit yourself to either the old or the new, in which case you're basically saying the base tables, the base records that I want to be working with are all coming from the old file, or they're all coming from the new file. And I exclude anything that's not part of that. All right. And here, I'm going to zip through some examples so you can see what these things look like. Old or new is going to get records out of both files. And this is our retail cost and dealer cost. If I do the old and new, it's going to do the things that are common. In which case, I won't have any short paths. There's going to be no zero-based data here. If I old not new, I'm basically saying only those records are in the old file and I'm excluding anything that is common, but it's in the new. The aftermatch new not old is exactly the opposite, right? And old nor new is the opposite of the intersection. And The old basically uses records from the old file and only gets those records that have something that this is the basis. This is the old file. If there are records that match from the new file, great. We'll bring them in. Same thing with the old, the new. It's everything that's based on the new file. So anything that's not matching in the old file gets dropped. Right? Very simple. Very simple. It's a question of what you can do with it. Now, there are some things you can do with match that get kind of interesting, and I call it matching by degrees. The degrees of sort. You can also use sort groups, multiple multiverbs. You can build matches with multiverbs, and they get very interesting. Some of the new stuff that we've got. We now have the ability to go beyond the hold formats that we allowed previously. Previously, you were pretty much you were restricted to hold format, alpha, and binary, and that was it. You now have the ability to hold into anything that has a master file. Anything. You have to. There is a setting that has to be put in place, and that's the match column order, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. The idea behind match column order is that if I have to group. If I have a multi-verb request, a multi-verb match that basically has 2 bys followed by 3 bys followed by 2 bys, all right, in the third file, then I want the fields in the third file, the records in the third file, to actually show up at the same sort level, which would be 2 bys. I want them, in effect, I want those records, that stuff moved up and included at a higher level, and that's functionally what happens. This is the grouped. Normally, the old behavior was ungrouped. We took it purely by linear order. It was basically how you specified it in the match, and we didn't care if there were if you had it 2 by 3 by 2, the second set of 2s was not grouped in with the ones that are the first group set of 2s. They were separate, so it didn't really do that much good. Our ability to now group these things together has given us the ability to hold things now into a focus or in anything that has a hierarchical structure.
Well,
all right. Yes.
All right. So next question. So this person has 2 files, both of which have a vendor number field and other fields. Is it possible? It's possible the second file has less records than the first.
That's okay.
So I want a report showing just those deleted missing records, not in the new file, but are in the old. I'm having problems using match to give me the report showing these. Do you have any suggestions? So I gave them that after match, hold old and not new should give them what they want.
You want the ones that are only in the old file, or you want to see the ones that are not?
I want to see the ones in the old file that don't have anything in the new file.
All right, let's go back. Let's go back real quick.
Old, not new.
Old, not new.
That's what I would think. Yes.
Old, not new is going to show you here. Let's go back to event.
And Mark, if you need to explain more, you can unmute.
Let me back this up. Oh, too far. Okay. You want to see the records where it's new, not
old, not new.
Old, not new is going to show you the stuff in the original file, the whole.
Correct. Yeah,
okay.
these are records that are in the old file that aren't in the new file.
There you go. That aren't old, not new.
So Mark, did you try that, or is that one of the combinations you just didn't try?
Hi, sorry. Actually, I've tried all of them, and I pretty much get the same report for each merge type that I use. And I get I get a report that has a bunch of columns / fields from the first file,
right,
and a bunch of columns from the columns / fields from the second file,
right,
and it's like approximately 1,000 records. Well, I only want like the few records that are in the first file, but not the second file. And I don't understand what I'm doing wrong.
Are you doing a print or a sum?
Print, or at least my
I would do a sum, because I think when you do a print, it actually joins up using the folk list field that you don't see.
Yeah.
Because that's an implied by field.
Yep.
Okay, I'll try that.
If you
You've
just
had it,
assume
Kevin?
that a sum is a print rather is a sum. A sum.
It's a list.
It's one record. A print
Yeah.
is the same as the sum with a folk list, as Mark said, as
Right.
Walter said. Sorry.
Yeah. That's right.
Mark, try that, and if it doesn't work, I suggest
It's
opening
just
a
high
ticket.
order by fields.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Okay,
So
but
Mark, give it a
also
try.
related to my question I had earlier about whether we had to have the same exact fields in both files, how is it determined? And the answer was no, the fields don't have to be identical,
No.
I think, just the by fields. But how is it determined that, you know, there's a record in one file but not in the other file? If the fields are different, what's a record?
It would be based on the buy.
Yeah, everything that the request that you build under the covers, basically, it's like it does a table request. It whatever you ask for in that initial match, you know, sum field A by field B, you build a temporary hold file with A and B in it, and that's all. That's used to do the merge, all right, with whatever you've got in the second file, all right, and the data values there are what's used in order to, we take the key, the by field, we use that to do the match. All right. If we find something's common, we create a record with that record with that data value and the value from each side, the values from each side. In other words, the records are joined. We now have a common record that has all the data from those two records.
Right.
All right.
And you're matching, in your match, you have by vendor ID or vendor number, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, try it with the sum, and if not, open a case, and then make
Yeah.
sure when in the description you put that you discussed this at the Focus Friday, so that they know it should come to us.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Appreciate
All
it.
right. No, Matt, it's good to see people trying playing with this thing. The match column order, I think we're back to where we were. The concept of the match column order is to allow us to do hierarchical output. To actually be able to put this into a focus file, which is a hierarchy, or an XFocus file directly. So we don't have to worry about, it allows us to generate files that are considerably smaller. It allows us to generate files that we can automatically create indexes for, this kind of thing. As a matter of fact, when we built this, all of a sudden, any file that had a master file became something that we could output to. And that's a biggie, because you can put this anywhere now with Match. You're not restricted to the old whole format. I don't necessarily have to have the same sorts, all right? I mean, and this is and looking at Match, we're saying that you match on the common fields, yes, but you don't necessarily have to have them exactly the same. I've got a request here where I'm going to use by country by car, and then I'm going to match that to something by country by seats. Now there is one common field here, country, but I also have that by car and by seats, and that in effect is going to kick in, and we'll take a look if we do the output that we generate, and this is just displayed, but it gives you an idea. The data is merged for country, and it's split out by country, by car, and by seats. So you have a very easy way to generate, and this is just a quick display of what we generate on the whole file there. And you can see you can actually do quite a bit with this. It looks like those two sorts are totally independent. They're not. Now, you can also have independent sorts. You don't have to have the same sort at all. In other words, you don't necessarily have to match keys. If the keys don't match, that may be exactly what you're looking for. You may simply be trying to join two things together, and in which case, you can do it. All right. In this case, I've got by car and by seats. They're not going to match, right? One's alpha, the other is no way they're going to match. But I can generate records with this. I can join stuff together. All right, I can create a single record that I could then turn around and pass into a graphing mechanism. I could send this over to WebFOCUS, use this directly in WebFOCUS to graph, and I have data that I have now in the same record, and that makes it exactly what I want. I need it in the same record. So there's all kinds of possibilities. You notice here that I have, in effect, I put country in the middle. This output is a print star. I could actually do a print, I could sort this by country no print on the output. And that literally I would have these columns, the country, the sorted column would be in the middle, which is another form of display. All right, I may need that. And this is a very easy way to generate that. Now, multiverb. Walter's talked a lot about multiverb this morning, and I'm talking about it too, because you can use multiverb inside a match. Now, normally we wouldn't be thinking about that, but you can. What's in the match request, anywhere in this match request, the request that you're building between the match file and the run, between the verb object and the run, what is it? It's a table request. It's a standard focus request. All right, and you've got all kinds of things. The only restriction that you've got is that you need the bifields. Now, you can't play with the crosses, yes, so that's a limit. But all the other stuff is available there. You can do computes, you can play with define fields, have a ball. You can get crazy with it. Same thing with multiverb. In other words, you can build multiverb structures. Now, what does a multiverb structure do? It actually builds a hierarchy. Okay, I've got 3 levels here. I've got some retail costs by country, and some retail costs by country by seats. That's 3 levels, all right, of aggregation, all right. And I can build that using match. I can literally build that in while I'm doing the match. I do the same thing down, I'm doing the same thing with, I've got retail cost, I've got dealer cost. I can add some additional stuff to it. I've got some selection criteria. The selection criteria can be for each one. And then I'm simply going to print it. I'm doing a print star again, just to show you what you end up with. Again, you've got multiple verbs. You've got the data available to you. And this is the summarized data. This is summarized by country. This is summarized by seats. All right. This is summarized overall. This is summarized by country. And this is summarized by seats. Right, and it's in a single record. So now all of a sudden you have a very easy way to work with data. If you need to display it, it's all in the same record. All right. All right. Match column order, ungroup. There's a legacy behavior. The output order is the common bifields at the beginning of the record, followed by the old verb objects, followed by the non-common bifields, followed by the new verb objects. That's the way it's always been done. The new behavior is common bifields at the beginning, the old verb objects plus the new verb objects at the same sort level. So if I have 2 sorts versus 3 sorts, anything that's, you'll see an example, we're going to promote it. And all of a sudden it's going to change structure. And that structure is going to give you the ability to generate a hierarchy, which we can output to very nicely, followed by the non-common bifields and the new verb objects. All right. Here's a request. Let's do this first with ungrouped. Take a look at where sales is. Sales is sitting over here at the tail end. All right. Sales, this is country by car, by country by car, by model, by country by car. All right. This is a 232. Sales is down here, but in the sort world, it actually is sorting at the same level as the stuff in the beginning, the retail cost. Now, to generate an output file from this, if I wanted to put this someplace in a hierarchy, if I want to put this in a focus file, it's really complicated because I have to, the sales field is in the wrong place. I can very easily put it in the right place using the new set command. And what that does is it groups it, and take a look at where sales is. Now sales is all of a sudden exactly where I would expect it to be. It's sorted by country by car. Model, in effect, is by country by car by model. That's the third sort. So this is a very powerful thing that we've done. This looks this isn't probably the most important piece of it. The most important piece of it is this has expanded our ability to create output. And that is the key thing that's happened. Match column order, we were limited to, for ungrouped to alpha and binary. Now you can have anything that generates a master file. So that includes alpha, binary, com, t, defix, focus, tab t, xfocus, any SQL output. So if you want to park this directly into an SQL database, you can. Right. And that's actually pretty important. Now, if we take a look at, I'm going to do I have a single request. I'm going to do an aftermatch hold on this to stick it into a defix file. The defix is a delimited fixed file. I have to specify in my hold command the things that I need, the delimiter and the enclosure and whether I want the header. But now that will generate my master file for me, and it'll generate the access file. It'll also generate the data file for me. So I now have the ability to generate other types of files that I can use very easily in other circumstances. And I can do this with Match, right? All right, this is the last thing, varying aggregation levels. All right, I'm going for a single record that basically aggregates multiple things with different sort fields. And I want them all together. I can, and you'll see here, this is the match tool that's used. This is a preview that is used inside of App Studio. Effectively, we're going to take the product, units and budgets by product, and then we're going to take dollars and budget dollars by region and match the two together. Then we're going to match that output by, and we're doing aggregates on these things. Then we're going to match that to category and the category field, units and budget units. So I have a way now of looking at the same data through multiple sort filters. In other words, I want to show the grouping of this data, same data, through different sorts in the same request. I want this all aggregated into a single place. So what this can build, and this is just a straight a print star on this guy. I've got all my product data sorted by product, and I've got my total product units and total product budgets. Now I can also, in this request, I've got my total region dollars and my total budget dollars for the regions in the same request, and I can add to that yet again another one. I've got this data also broken down in the same request to coffee, food, and gifts, which is the categories. And finally, if I really want to get crazy, I can break it down by date so that I can actually retain a bunch of details. How much did we actually sell on every day? And this is a single report. A single report. Now, what you can do with this, all kinds of possibilities. It depends on, typically, you could put this directly into an XFocus file, no problem, all right, because it's going to, the hierarchies are there, right, which is the important problem. Match has got all kinds of possibilities, and this is really what today is about taking a look at the possibilities for Match. So, any questions? Any more questions? All right. Okay, I think that's it. I'll stop sharing, and we're back. All right.
All right, everyone. Please remember to fill. Oh, Walter beat me to it. Please fill out your evaluations. We look forward to hearing from you guys.
Yep. And tune in next month.
Well, some of us will see you in November.
Yep. And we will all see you again in December. So whether we'll look forward to seeing you the next month or the month after. And hopefully by December, we'll have the schedule set up for next year, and you'll get an idea of where we're going to go with Focus Fridays at that point. All right.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Take care.